dwellers. As you can see, we've moved to a little more of a relaxed, intimate location for the winter months. Well, it's that, and partly due to the fact that I'm finally getting walls in my room. Anyway, just wanted to share what I have been watching recently. It's not a particularly new anime, but it's one I was bound to end up watching because I am a huge fan of its original incarnation. So what I'm talking about is Saint Seiya Omega. Now, I am a huge fan of Saint Seiya. It was one of those shows that I just got right into when I first started getting into anime, and it's a true classic, to the point where I call it a Gen 1 anime, which is to say that it started in the 80s and was kind of, you know, just fresh off of when anime was becoming a thing. And Saint Seiya Omega is its most recent incarnation. Now, just the basic gist of the Saint Seiya universe for you people who might be brand new to the show, Saint Seiya deals with basically whenever an evil force rises up in the world, the Warriors of Hope will appear. And they are garbed in armor representing their guardian constellations, and they fight by burning the energy within them, known as their cosmos. Now, these warriors are actually the 88 personal bodyguards of the Greek goddess Athena, who defends justice and protects love on Earth. And so these 88 warriors are her saints. Now, the original Saint Seiya played more on this Greek mythology angle, in which Athena was constantly battling other gods and their armies. First Poseidon, and then the big one was Hades. Now, without telling you too much of what happened in the original Saint Seiya, basically, you know, the Hades battle is resolved in its fashion and brings us into Saint Seiya Omega, which occurs, you know, some years later. Basically, what I'm seeing Saint Seiya Omega as is bringing Saint Seiya into the 21st century in more ways than one. The fact that the characters are much younger. Now, while in the original Saint Seiya, they were supposed to be in their early teens, but, you know, given the animation style of the time, they definitely appear to be in their 20s. But with this more recent animation style, it is very clear that our new generation of Saints are much younger, and it revolves around our new Pegasus Saint. The Pegasus Saint is always kind of the main character. Our new Pegasus Saint, Koga, who in the very first episode is under the care of Athena and is being trained to be a saint by his teacher Shaina, who, if you've watched the original Saint Seiya, we know from the get-go. She was in the very first episode, and her and Seiya had kind of an interesting relationship. So basically, this new incarnation has Koga being introduced to the world of saints and what their purpose is. And we are given a brand new villain in Mars. Now, Mars I found to be kind of an interesting angle because Mars, if you know your mythology at all, Mars is the Roman version of the god of war, which in Greek mythology would be called Ares. Now, I don't know why they chose to go with this angle, but, you know, it's fine. It's a, you know, nothing wrong with the name. It's just creating a villain, I guess, and maybe getting too heavy into the Greek mythology was something they wanted to avoid for making the show more accessible. But anyway, so you know, Koga is introduced into the conflicts and, you know, setting up Mars as the villain and having to stop him in his ambitions for basically world domination. From this point on, we're getting into the changes of the show, which I, as a old school Saint Seiya fan, had to do some adjusting to, but I could see if someone were completely new to this franchise, it would be much easier to deal with. So basically, Koga goes from where he was raised to the school for saints called the Palestra, where he meets, you know, fellow young saints, including Lioness Soma, Aquila Yuna, and Dragon Ryuho, who was an interesting character because he is the son of Dragon Shiryu from the original series, who was always a cool character. So Koga meets them, and, you know, they're training to learn how to use their powers, which in this incarnation of Saint Seiya kind of borrows a common theme from current animes in that it deals with they all have respective elements, and they are, you know, the typical ones you expect: fire, water, wind, lightning, earth, and then the major ones being light and darkness, which is actually like a big theme of this show. And while I had some trouble dealing with this concept at first, to me it just, you know, screamed like, oh, we're gonna go with a cliche here and have them go to school. And then when you stop and think about it, if we remember the original incarnation of Saint Seiya, they kind of did the same thing, only it was they were with individual masters as opposed to being in one collective place, which I can, you know, see just using to make things simple. And, you know, once I kind of got my head around this, I was able to forgive it much more, especially because a lot of the teachers at the Palestra are, you know, some of the saints that we know from the original version. So again, it's not like they got rid of this idea of, you know, the old saints train the new. It was like that was still in place. It was just they all had a set location for it now, as opposed to going off to various countries like in the original. And from that point, we, you know, get more into the conflicts, finding out that there is a conspiracy at the Palestra, that many of the saints have turned against Athena and have sided with Mars, our new villain. And basically everything goes from here, where Koga, Yuna, Ryuho, Soma, and we're later introduced to Haruto, become our core group of young saints who are basically have to take on the task of defeating Mars and stopping his ambition. And from there is where the series progresses, and we kind of go on a grand adventure of these saints becoming stronger and working to defeat Mars. Now, as an original fan of the series, again, I had problems adjusting to some things. Like the fact that they decided to go with this element structure of things, I thought was just, you know, doing the norm and, you know, just kind of borrowing from other aspects, particularly in the case of Haruto. He's kind of a, like, I like his character, but the character bothers me in the sense that he's a ninja, which is fine. It's, you know, an interesting, you know, take on the character, but it also just felt to me like it was borrowing way too much from Naruto, right down to his combat style. The fact that he refers to his techniques as jutsu, it really just felt like they were trying to borrow from something popular and put it into it, which, so I didn't really care for his character. However, the show starts to win the classic fans over by kind of throwing you a bone every once in a while by referring to the old generations of saints. The main thing being at this point, Seiya is almost deified. He is absolutely a living legend, even though we only see glimpses of him. Him and his, you know, core group of friends and the other saints from the original are referred to now as the legendary saints. So Seiya, Hyoga, Shun, Shiryu, and Iki. They are like the stuff of legend now, and whenever they are brought up, it is very exciting and reminds you that we are in the Saint Seiya universe. And they do that, and that's why the show won me over the episodes. So basically this show is, for you new people, if you want to get into a cool action show that has this kind of backdrop of Greek mythology, and of course the amazing armor, cloth is like by far the most visually striking thing probably in anime. It is just gorgeous, especially when we get into the more elaborate cloth, such as, you know, the gold. And if, you know, you're into that kind of action show, and this version of it is much more streamlined. Saint Seiya, the original incarnation, you know, you dealt with a lot of like charge, stand, and attack type of combat, and it could go on for episodes, you know, kind of showing of the time, but still, if you don't really have the patience for that kind of show, the original might not be your cup of tea. But in this version, things are a lot more streamlined and very visually striking. So if that's what you're looking for in a show, definitely recommend it. For my fellow old school Saint Seiya fans, this show has a learning curve. We have to adjust to these new themes, to new visual techniques, to entirely new characters, although if you want to make it easier on yourself, basically the 5 new guys are just various reincarnations of the 5 original guys. You know, like Ryuho is the new Shun, he's the kind one, and you know, Haruto is the new Hyoga. He's the guy who's always kind of got his crap together. You know, there is a learning curve to it, but it's very enjoyable, especially when we start to see glimpses of the original Saints, especially when you actually get to see Seiya, because hint hint, he is wearing gold cloth now. And basically, you just gotta give it a chance. I was hesitant to watch this at first. I actually stopped around 10 episodes and then picked it up again, and now it's really starting to win me over. This is part of the Saint Seiya world, and it's really cool to see, you know, how these new characters evolve, but it's also amazing to see how old characters have grown. So definitely give this one a watch. It is up on Crunchyroll, as most of the things that I watch, and there are several episodes. This is a longer running show, you know, 50 plus, so it's a show that you can spend a lot of time on, and you're probably going to have to really appreciate it. So that is my review for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. If you guys haven't checked out our first episode of Cost Profiles yet, definitely go check it out. Every episode of that, we're going to be featuring a great Canadian cosplayer from our area, and hopefully later on from a bit outside of them. But the first episode features the lovely Zombie Vitme. She was amazing, and we did a great shoot with her. And there is a profile and interview. Definitely go check that out. And if you have any recommendations for great cosplayers you want us to feature, just leave comments on this video or send them to our email at otakucrypt@gmail.com, and I will see you next time.